This is a special edition of Outspoken. And do you remember one of my favorite features on my former GB News show was The Clash? And so we're bringing it back for 1 week only, where we debate the biggest issues in the world and specifically the United Kingdom. Because today, who is going to save our country? Reform UK or Restore Britain? Joining me to clash it out, Reform campaign manager for Kensington and Chelsea, Kezia Noble, and Restore Britain's Montgomery Toms, who is also the founder of Freedom Watch GB. Remember, there is no Greatest Britain or Union Jackass this week because of these Clash specials, but the Royal Uncancelled After Show continues as usual over on Substack. After the main show, you can sign up to watch at www.outspoken.live. But now, let's go. So the right are bitterly divided on the issue of which political party can save Britain before it's too late, as the disunited kingdom is heading towards a dark future ruled by Islamism and communism. Now, I know a lot of you say Nigel Farage is our only chance at escaping this hellhole, but a growing renegade force has emerged, and they argue that Farage cannot be trusted, and Rupert Lowe is the only man who has what it takes with his new political party, Restore Britain. So it is a very simple question today. Who is going to save the country? Reform UK or Restore Britain? And to clash on this, Reform campaign manager for Kensington and Chelsea, Kezia Noble, who says only Reform UK can save Britain. She's going head-to-head with Montgomery Toms, who believes Restore Britain is our only hope. Now, I am going to let both of you put forward your cases now, officially representing your parties. Montgomery, you've only got a minute, so go.
Yeah, I'll keep it very short and sweet. Ultimately, Restore is against the establishment. Restore hasn't taken in a bunch of Tories who are responsible for screwing up this country in the first place. It's to the point, it's cutthroat. We're in a space where we're not there to necessarily just go and want to please everybody. It's about saying, no, this is what Britain needs, this is what Britain deserves, and also talking about accountability and justice and not hiding away from the past 5-6 years specifically as well. And I think that ultimately that's what the British people want. They are hungry for straight talking, to the point, policies, ideas, rather than this sort of flip-floppy, wishy-washy narratives that I think Reform is pushing forward. So that's that. Yeah, there you go in a nutshell.
Okay, 40 seconds. You've done it in 40 seconds. Kezia Noble, a minute. Why is Reform UK the answer?
When it comes to Restore versus Reform, the question isn't who sounds the most patriotic. It's who has an actual plan that you can implement. This is the first reason for why I've chosen Reform UK over Restore Britain. They have a plan. They are offering very specific, very well thought out changes which can actually be implemented. It's not a plan if it can't be implemented. They have, second reason, they have credibility, which is incredibly important when it comes to winning elections. They have a far greater national visibility than Restore do. They're organised, they have very high profile leadership, which is incredibly important. They have broader policies and they have a strong electoral track record. Now, if you look at Restore Britain, their visibility is online. Their visibility is online because of viral posts, and I admit it, very high levels of online engagement, but their offline engagement is pretty bad. So that's the third reason, offline engagement.
Okay,
I have more to say.
Time is up.
Fair enough.
More to say, but let's kick off on that then, Monty. Isn't Kezia right? Rupert Lowe is a great online figure supported by Elon Musk, but actually out there in the real world, everyone knows Nigel Farage.
No, it's great. It's what a lot of people are saying. Well, I can tell you one of the things I fundamentally do, Dan, for people that do follow my work, is I go out in the street. So I'm not focused actually in. I actually hate echo chambers online. I find it detestable. Actually, I think it's not what we should be doing. I want to be out in the street speaking to the average person. I've been out in the street recently. In fact, when we finish this show, I'm about to head into central London. I'm going to go and speak to people about exactly what you're referencing. And I can tell you my experience is far more people know Rupert Lowe than you'd actually anticipate and
Kezia
expect.
is shaking her head. Why are you shaking your
They
head,
don't have a
Kezia?
clue who he is.
But I've seen it. I've been
So
out
I've
there.
actually, this is not a personal attack.
That's all right.
But I have seen the videos that you make, and you go up to people with.
You're
with-
allowed to do personal attacks here,
it's
Kezia.
Go
not
for
my
it.
style. It's not my
I don't
style
mind.
because I think me and you are ultimately on the same side. We want the same thing for Britain. Britain is broken, and we want to see less immigration. We want to see lower taxes. Would you agree with that so far?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So we're on the same side. It's
yeah,
just that
ultimately.
you're going for somebody who's got an online presence with no workable plan.
But what's your attack? You said you've
Okay,
seen
my attack is I've
Monty's
seen
video.
your videos and it's very provocative. You're going up to people who are clearly anarchists and you've got like the Union Jack in your hand and they're spitting on it. It's all very viral, okay? But that doesn't translate into votes. I'm actually speaking to people when I go to. I was saying this earlier when I go to.
So you're saying
Hollywood-
Monty's an attention seeker?
I think.
Cheers, Dan.
Well, maybe I'm an attention seeker too. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to call you an attention seeker. I think you're coming from a very good place and you want the best. But I think, yes, you are in a chamber. You are going up to people who are just, they're going to respond badly if they see a Union Jack. And I think that you
Yeah, but
are in a
that's
bubble.
disgusting.
It is disgusting. I agree. But I speak to average people who do not have a clue. They've never even heard of Restore Britain, let alone Rupert Lowe. They don't know who Richard Tice is. They know Nigel Farage. That's it.
Yeah.
And so just to go to the point, the offline. So they have you have visibility online, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we have visibility offline. So we have a very steady, growing offline campaign.
You've just admitted they don't know Richard Tice. So it sounds to me what you're saying, Kezia, and I will let you come back,
Yeah.
but I've got to pick you up
course,
on this
okay.
because I think you have just in some ways exploded your own argument because what you're saying is that you're a personality cult behind one man, Nigel Farage.
We have a very high profile leadership. Yes, he's very high profile, unlike Rupert Lowe, who's not high profile. He is in Twitter world, but not in the real world. But going back to my point, we have a steady growing offline campaign. So we have literally an army on the ground of volunteers, of campaigners, of councillors, of members who are knocking on doors, speaking to the average person who still think it's a two-horse race.
So they're ahead. They're ahead of you, Monty. That's
just-
a fair point, though, isn't it? Reform is so well organised.
Oh, well,
It's very organised.
Look, you've got to give Reform the credit of they have they have, as I said before we started the show, they're a battle ram to conversation and opening a whole new political world, really. Now, there's a lot to unpack there, so I'll do my best to go as quickly as possible. Right. I've been doing this a long time. So I've been out campaigning, talking to people. At times, I talk to anyone. So yes, there was a gentleman who spat on the St. George's Cross, which I put out. Yeah, cool. I also spoke to loads of other people. There's like a 10-minute video out there of where I'm speaking to a bunch of young people who agree and some people that don't. So that's just one clip that's been taken out of a long form video. And plus, I'm out there debating with uni students, sometimes talking about things which
There's
are
not
very
an army
hot.
of you out there, though.
Well, I'm building an army. So which goes back to what you're saying is, there is an element of time here. Restore just set up
Yeah.
as a political party, gained 100,000 members. I think that's actually quite impressive. In fact, it's incredible that the BBC, it's one of the most unprecedented things that has ever happened in the political world, to get that level of membership that quickly, and the BBC don't even want to touch it.
So we can complain about the BBC, but if they're not going to feature anything to do with your party or Rupert
I think that's a
Lowe,
good thing.
You think it's a good thing?
I think that actually that our support base recognise that we are genuinely anti-establishment and that we don't need the BBC to promote
you do
us.
need it.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I speak to the average person. I'm not living in Twitter bubble world.
Mm-hmm.
I speak to the average person who watches the BBC. They still get their information from there. Just let me finish. They still think, the average person still thinks that there is a two-horse race to this election, which is Conservative or Labour. They don't have, they barely register the fact that, Reform are a strong candidate. So I knock on those doors. We go and speak to those people. And they are watching BBC. They are watching ITV still. So you saying, well, we don't need BBC. We don't need ITV. Okay, that's very noble of you. But it is going to hinder your chances of getting out. Again, your national visibility is very low. National visibility is very. Look at what happened to Ben Habib. He's got a lot of followers. He's got high engagement rate. How many How many votes did he get in the recent by-election?
Okay. So I number one is there is a time, as I say, there is a time element here. Okay, so as we'll just revisit that. We have just formed. So let's have this conversation again in, let's say, a year. Okay, let's say a year, and I'll be interested to let's see how we've progressed in terms of what you would consider. I would say there are actually lots of people out there because I speak to a lot of people outside of the Twitter bubble.
Well, the 100,000 figure is amazing.
and that's important.
And it cannot be underestimated because that is paid for membership, puts Restore Britain as a bigger party than the Liberal
Dems.
Democrats. And by the way, Kezia, they got that membership level a lot faster than you did.
But a lot of that is a protest vote from a lot of disgruntled reformers, and they will come back to reform when it comes to the elections. And I'll tell you why. Because they will get, on the day before, they'll use their head and they'll say, you know what, there's no chance that Restore...
And do tactical voting.
And they'll do tactical, and they'll go back to reform because I'm telling you now, reform is whether you said to me in the green room, they don't go hard enough. We'll talk about that later because there's certain things, by the way, that you can't do. That Restore is saying that they can do. They just can't do. It goes against constitutional law. And I've done a lot of research on this.
But so you're making excuses.
No.
Well, actually, I want to kind of.
This is
Do
the
you mind if
point.
I
please?
can argue
'Cause
my point.
I'm trying to. I'm trying to.
Well, you
unpack a
finish
lot of
your
what you're
point,
saying.
Kezia, and then Monty can come.
The point is that there are people who are doing this as a protest for a vote. I was the same. It took me time to choose Reform UK. I was very upset when Rupert Lowe was thrown out of the party.
That was disgusting. They reported him to
I
the
was
police.
upset because I've met him. I think he's a good man. I don't have this opinion that Restore voters are these terrible people and other names that they've been called recently.
Neo-Nazis?
I do not think that at all. I think they're good people who want the best for this country. But let's put it
Layla
this way.
Cunningham made a terrible
let's put it
mistake, Kezia, didn't she?
I can't speak for her.
No,
Can't
but
speak, and I won't speak for her.
No, I'm not asking you to speak for her.
I wouldn't have used that terminology.
She was wrong to call Charlie Downs of Restore Britain a neo-Nazi, wasn't
For
she?
me to call someone a neo-Nazi, they'd have to do something really bad.
Why can't you just say she was wrong? Because you're scared, because you know that Reform UK operate like a cult, and if you
It's not
say
a
the wrong
cult.
thing, you might be reported to the police next, just like Rupert Lowe was.
It's not a cult, but we are a very strong unit and we stick by each other and we're loyal to each other. And you need that because look what happened
Kezia,
to Thatcher.
Sorry, Monty.
Look what
just
happened
one
to
moment.
Thatcher.
I've got to just make this point. You're not loyal because your chairperson, Zia Youssef,
Yes.
reported Rupert Lowe, a man who you have just said that you like and is
didn't,
honourable,
yeah.
to the
I didn't say
police
honourable. I
for
didn't say honourable.
hurty words.
I didn't say honourable. I don't know what went behind the closed doors. Maybe he's a difficult character. Maybe he's already started up his own party
Okay,
now.
but should he have been reported to the police?
I don't know the situation. I wasn't even a member then. I wasn't even a
Okay.
member. But look,
Okay,
I'm just going to
anyway,
end my point.
I
Can
just
say
had to
my
make that point.
Can I just say my point? For me, Restore has a lot of heart. But Reform has a lot of heart and strategy, and you need both
Okay.
if you want to
Okay,
succeed
well,
in
Montgomery
politics.
needs to respond
There's
to
a
that.
lot. There's so much to unpack. So it seems to me, number one, that you're talking purely not from a case of principle, from a case of populism and popularity. So are you saying? You don't have to answer. It's rhetorical. But you can answer if you want to. Are you saying that if Restore had the level of engagement you're claiming that Reform has over Restore, you would vote Restore? Then?
No, I think Nigel Farage is a better leader.
So you
than,
would vote
than
for
Rupert Lowe.
okay. So you would vote for a party that has taken in Robert Jenrick, who's responsible for bringing in 1 million migrants in a year. You've taken a party that has endorsed and brought in Nadim Zahawi, who's responsible for, forgive me for saying this, but I'm going to put it bluntly because you know my opinions, literally putting jabs into children. Children have died because of these jabs. He then took away our fundamental rights and liberties through vaccine passports, vaccine mandates, saw that through. That man is now inside Reform. He is an evil man who, in my opinion, should be in prison and should be literally put through one of the most ruthless trials that we have. And yet he is what you're proposing, that's a man that you want on side in Reform. Suella Braverman, okay, yes, she said some good things again.
She had her hands tied, you know that.
Yeah, but my point.
I think she's been the best defection.
She you know, it's like best defection. It's like the best of a bad bunch. I mean, who cares? I don't care. She's a Tory again.
Which one do you want me to focus on? Because you've said a lot of names there.
Well, you can choose whichever you want. I'd say fundamentally Nadim Zahawi. I think, and
how do you
is a
justify the
disgusting man.
defection of him?
How can you vote in that direction? It just can't. For me, sorry, I just want to. For me, because I was patient with Reform. Okay, I was patient. I'd never come out in sport. I spoke at the Reform conference, and I'd never said I'm going to go and vote Reform. But I did say this is interesting. Let's wait and see. Then they come forward and they say, okay, we're going to endorse and bring in Nadim Zahawi. I'm like, the man who told told parents that their role is no longer a factor in whether their children go and take an experimental mRNA jab. It's disgusting. I mean, you can't, in the last 5 years or 6 years, we have never seen something more authoritarian, more outrageous, more harmful than the lockdowns and the jabs and the mandates. And yet, that's who Nigel Farage invited in. Bearing in mind that Nigel Farage is the man
he has experience.
who banged his pots and pans and endorsed Tony Blair as being a shining light when it comes to jabs.
So Nigel Farage, by the way, and all the Reform MPs, they voted against the vaccine passports. You do know that. So they might have taken the jab, but they did, all of them vote against the vaccine passports. So when they wanted to bring in the vaccine passports to go into nightclubs and bars, they voted all against it, including Richard Tice, all of them. All the
Tice wasn't in.
I was going to say they weren't MPs,
but he opposed them. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but I know that the ones who... sorry, yes, it's
They
before,
weren't
of course
MPs,
it's before Reform. Yeah, but I'm saying
Yeah.
they individually all opposed those. That's one thing.
Well,
now,
Adam Zahawi.
No, let me talk about him, okay? So the reason why they've got the Tories on is for the experience. This is really important, okay? They need to have experienced MPs. Zahawi, he was... Look, I have strong feelings about the vaccine rollout, as you do, as we've discussed. Okay, I think we're on the same page there. Yeah. He was following orders from Boris Johnson, and there's a lot of people out there who think the vaccine rollout was brilliant. They thought it was really well done. It was well run. Look, let's say we were all pro this vaccine, we would have to all admit that it was really
from an organisational point of
yes.
It wasn't even a vaccine.
So why not he take that organisation experience and apply it to something else? He might be really good.
Because he should be in jail. It's like, just because you fess up and go, oh, I made a mistake, which, by the way, I found it utterly
I didn't say that. I just said it's the experience. He's able to...
But he's a liar. This is the problem that
I've got Robert Jenrick
but
here.
Even if you just move away from the vaccines,
through every single
but
point.
even if you just move away from the vaccines for 1 second and talk about the passports for a second, I mean, I literally had that dude, Nadeem Zahawi, on my show. I was hosted on Talk Radio through 2020. I made him promise that vaccine passports would never, ever come in. And literally within months, he had changed his mind. So he's a liar. I know what you're saying about experience, but I'm sorry.
It's very important to have that
should not be outweighed by immorality.
So I've given the reason for why they've brought him on. He's got a lot of experience. You do need that. I honestly don't know who Restore are going to have in position. It looks like people running around with cameras interviewing people in the street and being provocative.
Montgomery.
No, not Montgomery. Our mutual friend.
That sounds like what he does.
No, our mutual friend, Young Bob, people like that running around with a camera trying to get
Young
clicks
Bob
and likes.
He isn't a formal representative for the
not at
party.
all,
He's not, but he's a supporter, and I find that if that's who they've got in line going to run the country. But you asked about Robert Jenrick, and I got all these people I can explain. Rupert Lowe, by the way, you heard that he was saying how much he likes Robert Jenrick. You found that video that came out recently praising these people. And don't forget, all this stuff about Tory, I never voted Tories in my life. Don't forget that Rupert Lowe also wants a Tory. People can change.
Many
Can I just come up with one small
What,
point?
2019?
Which
6 years ago.
Well, that was very
He's
different.
only been in
That
politics
feels like
for
many
6
moons
years.
ago for me.
He's only been in politics
I
for
think
6
I was,
years,
what, in
unlike
29?
Nigel Farage, who's been in there for 20
Rupert
years.
Lowe, I know we're going to speak more about Rupert Lowe later, but it is worth pointing out he was a member of the Referendum Party, which split away from the Conservatives in the 1990s. So he did that very, very early.
Who got us the referendum?
Oh, no, indeed. Nigel has a great legacy in a lot of ways, and I do not question that.
But the last point I'd make is basically where do you draw the line? Okay, so your line may be different to mine. My line is when you bring someone, I don't care how much experience you've got, when you bring someone into the party who is literally responsible for rolling out a jab and taking away fundamental liberties.
Got one more response for that.
That's no worries.
Okay.
But the jab, as I say, there are mothers and fathers out there that have lost their children. You need to put yourself in their position.
Okay, what's your response to that, Kizzy? Because I want to move on to some issues.
Okay, so it's going back to, you're saying, right, forget about experience, but actually a lot of people have looked at that rollout, not me, not you, not Dan, but there's a lot of people out there who took that vaccine and thought it was a great idea and they're very happy with their decision, and they look at this MP who's coming over from Conservative and they go, I like the look of that. That's good. That shows that
Well, that's not
reformer
showing up in the
even
polls.
more legit.
That's not showing up in the polls,
Doesn't
Kezia,
matter.
because all I have to say
Principle.
though, yeah, but I know, but
Morale.
at this point, Kezia is talking about pure politics.
Yep.
And all you have to look at is all of the recent polls since the defections of all of the Tories, and Reform UK is down. But I do just want to take a break from talking about the pure politics and let's talk about some issues, because actually, that is one of the most important things with Restore Britain. For example, Katie Hopkins, who has been very supportive of Reform UK, who endorsed Matt Goodwin in the Gorton and Denton by-election, who, like me, voted for Reform UK at the last election, has always said, we've got to vote for Reform, holding our nose, knowing that they're not quite where we're at. And all of a sudden, we have some hope, right, with Restore Britain, that maybe we don't have to vote for a party and hold our nose. And there are some fundamental differences that I think are really important to pick up on. So you mentioned young Bob and the debate that exploded. And a lot of it is around this idea of ethnicity, right? And Restore Britain are prepared to have a more honest conversation than Reform UK on what it means to be British, what it means to be English, what Islamism really is. And I think it is worth just exploring that difference. Kezia, are you one of these people who say, actually Restore Britain are verging on racist by saying it doesn't make you British just to have a British passport, because your chairman, David Bull, immediately, the morning of the by-election, immediately turned on your candidate in that by-election, Matt Goodwin, and said, no, that is not party policy. In Reform UK, if you have a British passport, you are British. And Rupert Lowe says, absolutely not.
So I do think if you have a British passport, you are British. But that doesn't mean that you have...
Ethnically?
No. Ethnically, this is an Anglo-Saxon, Celt, Britain kind of... It's Anglo-Saxon stroke Celt country, isn't it? Would you say that's fair enough?
Yeah.
But a question too, because I did notice that you put something on X recently, which you said to be British is about ancestry and lineage, not a passport. Question, let's say a black man goes into our armed forces. Is he not British? You know, he's prepared to sacrifice his life for this country. Is he not British?
Well, first of all,
not English lineage, just British.
Let's remove, because I always think this is very important. Let's remove the black aspect, right? Because if this was someone who's white from, I don't know, let's think of, Hungary. All right, I would say the same thing, or Switzerland.
Yeah,
I would
you're
say
trying
the
to
same
turn it
thing.
into a race issue.
I couldn't care less about the colour of one's skin. So
I'm trying to find out where you sit on this. So it's not about skin colour.
Not at all.
It's about lineage.
It's about lineage, and it's about well, I can really break that down, but I want you to answer your specific question,
okay, thank you.
which was if let's say somebody who's let's think of a different country. I don't know, someone from Bangladesh, let's say, if they were to fight in our armed forces, are they?
And they have a British passport, and they've lived
No,
here,
they're
and they were born
British.
here.
No.
They're not British. Okay, even though they're prepared to sacrifice their life
Well,
for you.
that's
Have you done that?
Commendable. No, of course, commendable, but it's not. I'm not. When you turn around and say, "Oh, you're not English," for example, that's not a disrespectful thing to say. I'm not saying you're bad or worse than.
I know you're
anyone.
not. You're just
But
saying.
I'm just calling a spade, and I'm just saying.
I mean, kids here, if I
Literally.
went and lived in Japan and had lived in Japan for the past 20 years, and I had fought in the army for Japan, and I even had a Japanese passport, would I be Japanese?
You'd be a Japanese citizen.
Yeah, but would
would
I
you
be
be Japanese?
Japanese?
You wouldn't be ethnically Japanese.
right.
Yeah, so
what I'm
that's
saying.
the difference. And I think what Restore Britain say, which is different to what Reform UK say, but you can argue the point if you think it's something different. I think what Restore Britain is saying is not that if you're not ethnically British, you immediately have to be deported and that you're not part of the country. But
Understood.
ethnicity does matter. It is part of the conversation.
Can I just do a bit of a deep dive on this? So what if someone's half Irish lineage, like a lot of them are? Like I did a DNA test recently and I found out, like, I don't know where it came, 19% Irish.
Or Tommy Robinson is the example. a lot of
What you're
people are
asking me?
using.
What?
So would I still be British if I have that much Irish blood in me?
Yeah. Yeah, because I believe, because I'm of the belief that this is the
So it's England and Ireland.
yeah.
What about someone who's half French?
Yes. Yeah, so I can easily answer this. So one of the most fundamental things about integration, if you ask me, is marriage. Okay, so let's say you're Japanese and you move to England, okay, and you marry an English woman. Your children, okay, they will have ties to our English lineage, and that will be passed.
What if they don't
down.
have children? What if it's a couple get married and one is
I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I of course wouldn't say they're English. I would say they're honorarily English. So I'll ask you a question.
honorarily English?
If you
What about Jews?
married
What about
me,
Jews?
hang on. I'll answer that again. But if you marry me, okay, and I've got a brother, is he your brother? Yes, technically he is, not by any
He's my
sort of-
brother-in-law.
Right. So it's
No,
the
that's a
same.
big difference to brother.
No, this is the point I'm trying to make. So that's about marriage.
But
So
Kezia,
you're part of our community, you're part of our country, you're part of our tribe.
Can I-
What has been
okay,
frustrating
I've got
about this argument, though, for me, is that we have seen a real common sense position uniting the right on the trans extremism, right? So we were all able to agree and fight the mainstream media and fight the establishment that a trans woman, a man who identifies as a woman, is not a woman. And we were able to unite on that conversation. Yet now I see people within Reform UK and they're doing it as a sort of gotcha to restore Britain rather than making like a moral or scientific argument.
I didn't bring it up.
I'm not saying you.
I'm just
I'm
questioning
not saying
it
you.
because
I've seen a lot.
I consider
I've-
black people who have lived here for 3 generations, Jewish people who've lived here for 3 generations as British. Yes, you can question their loyalty to this country. I believe heavily in that, but I'm not going to sit there and say they're not British because they are British.
Yeah, as I say, if you come to, wouldn't you say it's concerning? Like if we look at Whitechapel as a great example, you may have second generation migrants there who have all married within Whitechapel in their own community,
Yes.
and they have not integrated or married into our country.
So you just see them as British citizens.
yeah, as soon as a
Fair
citizen.
enough. I mean, I kind of agree with that. Yes, they're British
Well, that's
citizens.
that's the
it.
point
Yeah.
that
I mean,
was
I don't-
made that Leda Cunningham then called us neo-Nazis for
Neo-Nazis.
making.
Well, you won't hear me saying that.
No, I appreciate that, but
But she's a senior figure within your party.
I did explain on your other show, maybe under pressure. She works incredibly hard. Honestly, I'm telling you that hand on heart. I see her at every single event. She comes to our branch meetings. She's running off here, there, going on to question time to debate Zach Polanski, who is our common enemy here. I'd like to talk about
But
that
see,
at some
what
point.
I see, though, what I see is Reform UK bending and dancing on these fundamental issues based on what is politically convenient. Because all of a sudden, Layla Cunningham went from saying herself on Good Morning Britain in an interview on that ITV show, I'm not ethnically British, I'm ethnically Egyptian.
That would be in
to
tune with
saying
what
that Charlie Downs
Montgomery's
is a
saying then.
neo-Nazi. Well, of course, but she said that and then she changed her view because of Restore Britain. Anyway, the second key issue that we have to deal with, as I mentioned before, is Islamism. Because this is another significant break between the two parties. Montgomery, Nigel Farage has been very honest about the fact that it is just impossible to win a general election in this country without embracing Islam.
yeah. Well, again,
Isn't that the right position?
it goes back to the same thing I said before. It's about principle. It's about putting the British people. Ultimately, we are a Christian country. Our roots are rooted. I'm not best description in Christianity, and that needs to be upheld. Like we are seeing inside of Reform, Islam has some kind of it has an involvement. Let's face it. I mean, we can agree on that. You know, you've got people representing Reform which are.
But Zia, you're talking about Zia Yusuf, for
Mohammed,
instance.
yeah, that's his real name. But
Okay,
yeah,
Mohammed Zia
just find that
Yusuf.
interesting that he doesn't want to use that name publicly.
So
yeah,
Zia
throw that in.
Yusuf has been very outspoken about Islamism in this country, and he's put his head above the parapet because do you know, if you're a Muslim and you speak out against Muslims or Islamists, whatever you want to call them, they get more death threats than you and I would.
No, and I commend that. No,
Okay, so he's really putting himself out there to speak about something that we're all extremely concerned with.
okay.
But no one has asked Zia Yusuf or Layla Cunningham about how their faith impacts their policies. Now, I have been desperate to have that conversation. They have refused
speak
to
for
do
them.
it.
I can't.
But are you not concerned about Takia, which is this concept
The idea that you can lie for
Yeah.
the greater good. From what I can tell, from meeting them, speaking to them, they do not seem like religious Muslims at all. They're not observant at all, from what I understand. But I can't speak for what's in their heart. So but can I just ask you? So would Restore Britain have any Muslims allowed in their party? If you're worried about Takia, for instance.
I think I'm not going to speak on that. As I said to you before in the green room, like I'm a week into talking on behalf of Restore.
Is
so
it
I'm gonna-
unlikely? Would you say?
Is it what? Sorry.
Is it unlikely that you'll have any Muslim
I'll tell you what-
MPs
I'll
or
tell you-
Muslim members?
So I tell you what it is. I think that it's very unlikely we're going to attract people that will represent Restore Britain as Muslims. I think, for example, like the ban on halal slaughter. Okay, that's
That's not going to go down well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
right. Exactly. So I would say that
You'll
naturally
lose
we
the
are
Jewish vote
basing.
also for that.
Well, and I think that. Well, I think that's fine. I mean, the point is, we don't believe in. Forget
Again,
the religious element.
There's no
here.
strategy here.
No, but let's forget about
There's no strategy.
Let's forget about the religious element in that. Look, I also come from
Just
an
an
angle.
online protest. Is.
Forget about the religious element of the slaughter, because obviously that's key here. It's just against animal abuse. Full
and
stop.
hunting is also. Hunting's bad. You leave so when you shoot the animal, because I know my parents hunt. When you shoot the animal, they're left to bleed out slowly. That's cruel. Boiling lobsters alive. That's cruel. So it's not about animal cruelty.
Well,
let's be honest. You want to encourage people to remove themselves from the country. You want to encourage it because a lot of
Well, of course,
Muslims
that's an element of it.
and
Oh,
Jews
absolutely.
will actually
No,
go and leave.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely. So I'm not denying that. That's a core element. I'm just saying that people do also get fixated on the religious element when there's also just an animal.
Because you're
cruelty
talking
element.
about kosher food as
Kosher,
well.
Yes,
yeah.
kosher. It's the same thing essentially.
Yeah, it is, and it's nasty.
And so is hunting.
I lived next door to a
What do you think
chicken-
about hunting?
I think hunting. I went shooting. No, it wasn't hunting. I went shooting very recently, and I'll tell you something else. Which
Rupert's a big hunter.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's not about animal cruelty because I know it's cruel because my family go hunting. Okay, they used to go fox hunting. It's very cruel. So let's put that
But
aside.
Rupert Lowe shot his own dog so as
Well,
not
I can
to
answer
be
that,
cruel.
I don't think he's a cruel person, but what's happening is like you're using this argument. I think you should just be honest and say we want these people to not feel welcome in this country. We want them to leave, and a great way to do it is to ban halal
have just said
slaughter.
that.
Okay, can I ask you, what do you think then about outlawing male circumcision? Because the Muslims and the Jews practice that for religious reasons. Do you think that should be the next thing banned?
So I will talk from my personal perspectives here, because again, this is not a conversation that
Genital mutilation.
I would agree.
So you'd ban that also.
I think that circumcision of children is I personally believe that should be outlawed. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that Restore will do that eventually?
I will happy to go and have that conversation and have that dialogue. But again, I just want to make it clear that I'm representing purely my opinion on
Of
that
course,
on
I
that
understand,
end there,
yeah.
and I don't know about the party line on that
So,
front.
but Kezia, do you believe that Reform UK are doing the right thing by putting Muslims right at the heart of the power at the party and making it clear that they believe that you need to gain a significant Muslim vote in order to gain power? Is that the right thing to do?
They want a Muslim vote, but it's not going to. We all know where the Muslims are voting. They're voting for Green and they're voting for Labour. So I believe that they're picking who they believe are the best people for the job. But also, yes, it does look good. Look, again, get out of Twitter bubble, look at the big world, and people are looking at this going, oh, because they were saying for years, Reform and Nigel Farage was a racist, okay? They've been saying that for years. And now they see this party with an eclectic mix of different people from different backgrounds. So he's actually not racist. Oh, all that, that perception that I had of him before, that's completely out the window now. I think that for Restore Britain, it will resonate with a small group of people very strongly. But I think when people start listening to things about ban this and ban circumcision and all this, I think that's going to frighten a lot of average people.
But do you think some of these policies are racist?
Whose policies are racist?
Restore's.
I haven't seen any that I think are racist. Okay. No, I'm not accusing anyone of being racist.
Do you mind if I just throw in, and again, this might come across quite strong, but this is how it's genuinely my opinion.
Everything with is how you feel. See, this is about Restore. It's about feelings. It's not about feelings, and Reform are about rationality and strategy.
That's fine. Okay. So I'm just going to say that through everything you've said, all of it sounds on paper reasonable, and I understand your perspective. I've got very good friends who are 100% in your boat, and who are very against my position here and are coming at it from the angle of we've just got to win.
I'm not against your position. It's unworkable.
Fine. That's your
that's
perspective.
But
This is the point I wanted to make. Essentially, if you are going to vote for Reform and endorse Reform, what you are endorsing is within Reform is, as I reiterate, a man who took away our fundamental rights and freedoms and jabbed children and pregnant women and lied to us and coerced us and literally treated
Are you going back to
Zahawi
and we're stuck on him still.
Well, we're not. Well, we are stuck on him
You
because
keep
he should
going
be
back to him. I thought, but I did give you my explanation.
And I'm saying your explanation of that wasn't adequate
good
at
enough.
all.
Should we do? Okay, so you want me to go further into that?
Well,
No,
I'm
we
happy
don't need to do that. But
I'll do the deep dive on every single question thrown at me.
What I think is very clear here is that we do have a bit of divide in terms of heart versus head.
Yes.
Because
Principle.
there are people who believe that the UK is so broken that actually Nigel's sort of, to use Elon Musk's phrase, weak source approach isn't going to cut it. And that is really fundamental. And now for the second part of our conversation, actually, who is more trustworthy? Because you have these two significant leaders at the heart of this, Nigel Farage or Rupert Lowe, and they have absolutely divided the right. So a reminder that as our week of the clash continues, we are here with Reform campaign manager for Kensington and Chelsea, Kezia Noble, and founder of Freedom Watch GB, Montgomery Toms, who is a Restore supporter. So Kezia, I want you to start this one.
Okay.
1 minute for you as to why Nigel Farage is more trustworthy, is the Prime Minister that we need over Rupert Lowe.
Trust comes from consistency, and he has been very consistent. Voters know where he stands. He translates ideas into political major outcomes. He delivered us the referendum. I don't look at who's more trustworthy. I look at who's going to be a better leader. And I can see the track record for Nigel Farage is very strong. Now, he has been under public national scrutiny. He's been investigated, debated, challenged for over 20 years. If there was any proof of dishonesty or corruption, it would be clear by now. And if you look at Rupert Lowe, he's been in the spotlight for 2 years? Okay, he's been in politics for 6 years, which isn't very long, but he's been in the spotlight for 1-2 years, and he has not faced that national scrutiny. He's not been debated on such a national level. So let's see how he copes under the pressure. Now, I'm sure you're going to bring up, but he's not a trustworthy person because he kicked out Rupert Lowe. But we don't exactly know what was going on there. But I know that.
Okay, time's up.
Okay, fair enough.
Over to you, Montgomery.
Yeah, I mean,
why is Rupert Lowe more trustworthy than Nigel Farage? A minute.
Well, I'll reiterate what I said at the beginning. You know, he is to the point, straight talking, and he's saying so many things that many people want represented. Okay, and again, you may forgive me, sound like a broken record on this one, but when it comes to, for example, COVID policy and justice for what happened back then, Farage doesn't want to talk about that. Farage doesn't want to investigate the attack on our fundamental rights and liberties, and he was complicit in supporting that with the COVID-19 jabs and mandates. And I think that is really fundamental, especially in my journey of fighting for freedom. It's not something I'm ever going to forget. And Restore and Rupert is very clearly what will speak out against that. My opinion is really simple. Farage, I would say, has done historically some. You've got to commend Farage for being out on the boats looking and exposing the illegal migration. You've got to commend him for that. The point is, okay, he's not going to take it far enough. We do need to reverse the mass illegal migration that we have seen. And Rupert will talk about fundamental things that Farage will not touch. And that's why we need Rupert.
Okay, your minute's up. Kezia, before you come in, let me just pick something up because you used the word consistent in regards to Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
Now, I would actually challenge that. And I'm not an anti-Nigel person. I was a colleague with him at GB News. We were very close, actually, for that time when I was a colleague with him at GB News. But I really am surprised that you describe him as consistent. I mean, let's look at his new approach to the NHS, for example, which he used to argue we could not afford as a country, and that if you could afford to pay for it via insurance, you should. Now he's saying, no, it's going to be free at the point of use. So I don't think you can really say that Nigel Farage is a consistent politician.
Well, ideas can evolve, and then when you start looking into the minutiae of things can change. And also, a lot has changed since then. You know, every year there's things that are changing. We're getting more and more people into the country. That has an influence over the decisions that we make about policies. But he's always been very consistent about immigration. Now, I really want to make this point.
He wants more. Well, in the past, no, because this is important.
Okay,
again, he has said very openly that he wants more immigration from countries like India. That's what he said in the past. Now,
yes.
I don't think that would be a particularly political,
What year? Do you know what year that was by any chance?
decision. Yeah, it was just before Brexit.
Okay, perfect. So he probably at that point this is my take. I'm not speaking directly for him. That's very important. You know, at that we've had, I think it's now 1.2 million Indians come in. At that time, just after Brexit,
he got what he
the
wanted.
idea, well, I don't think he wanted that many and unskilled Indian workers. I don't think so. So at that time, I also said, yes, let's get a certain amount of workers from India who'd be working in certain areas of industry that we needed. And unfortunately, under the Boris wave, we've got like so many people flooding in who are unskilled. I do not believe that was Nigel Farage what he wanted at the time. He just didn't what he wanted. As we know, he didn't want mass immigration from Europe. Now, what happened is the Conservative Party came along and absolutely destroyed that. And who was in that? Who was in that Conservative Party? Rupert Lowe, by the way, not Nigel Farage.
No, he wasn't.
He was in 2019.
Well, no, he wanted to. No, if you speak to Rupert Lowe about this, but if you speak to Rupert Lowe about this, he was running to be a Brexit Party MP, and he was absolutely furious that Nigel Farage stood all the candidates down. So who were you going to vote for? It was Nigel who made the choice to take the Brexit Party out of the discussion.
I think he had faith that they would do a good job with it.
But that was a huge mistake. But Montgomery,
yes.
Where you cannot question Farage is that without him, there would have been no Brexit. And he is completely correct in saying it was the Conservative Party that effed up its delivery, isn't he? So I do think Farage gets a lot of respect from Brexiteers.
Yeah, and again, like, look, I'll say this on camera right now. I was very young when Brexit came forward, but I was an avid Remainer and thought, I was in that sort of captured woke mindset of Farage. I mean, I was 12.
Yeah, but you'd been taught.
But I'd been taught
he was basically a devil. He was devil incarnate.
Yeah. So I would say that actually Brexit and Farage, I've listened to before. There was even a discussion of reform and all of that. I would listen to Farage and think, oh wow, that's really interesting, and he won me over on many things. So I'm not going to say that that he's not got a good track record. I've already commended him as well. He's one of the first people out there actually on the boat saying, look,
he
we've
made
got these
this conversation palatable. That's really important.
I don't deny that.
But before that, we could not even say, I think there's too many immigrants. You couldn't go on a TV program.
Fine.
But he's made it palatable, and he's opened the doors for this conversation.
And I said
you would not be sitting here with me discussing this.
I've said that historically, that the Reform Party has been like a battle ram to open up conversations. Just because he's done that doesn't mean we can just allow him to just make stupid decisions and do bad things.
So can I go on to a point which is about... my first point that I made of why I am voting for Reform UK is because they have a workable plan. Okay, they've got a plan that can be implemented and cause seismic changes, which you'll feel the benefits from very, very soon. But no, it's not enough for reform. I think for Restore.
But do you think Nigel Farage
I can explain exactly what they want to do, and I can compare it to what Restore wants to do, which is unworkable. I can do it for you right now.
We're talking here about the personality, because that is a big part of both of these parties. You can't deny that. Come on, Reform is a bit of a personality cult behind Farage, and at this point, Restore is in terms of behind Rupert Lowe. So personalities.
I don't remember anyone saying was Margaret Thatcher trustworthy. She was a strong leader. She was smart. She made good decisions. But in the end, by the way, she made bad decisions. She didn't get rid of people in her party who turned...
Well, I was about to say,
yes,
she
but he got rid of Rupert
her
Lowe.
allies under the bus, did she?
And look what happened to her. And look what happened to her.
She was confident. She wasn't scared all the time that someone was coming to stab her in the back. And that's Nigel's problem. It's like, Nigel, you should be confident. Why?
November
anytime
21st.
someone powerful comes along, you end up falling out with them.
Because that's what happens.
There is a big, long line of this, though. Incredible people.
Can I show...
November 21st, 1990, she was thrown under the bus because she wasn't so ruthless.
I will just say one, because this point I was trying to make before, and then we got a bit sidetracked. Okay. If you want to vote for Reform and back Reform, fine, but you have to accept that those that are in Reform, you have to admit this and say, well, you're compromising on these facts. You're compromising on the fact that Nadim Zahawi is in the party. You're compromising on the fact that he's responsible for taking away our rights, attacking our liberties, and jabbing children, etc., and harming people. Hang on, you're also compromising on the fact that Jenrick is in the party, instrumental in bringing
Rupert
in...
Lowe liked.
Who
He said it on a video. He said, I think he's... can you play the video? Can someone find the video in your studio?
I know the video you're talking about. He's a good young Tory.
I'm trying to make a point, and I keep getting cut off, so this is really, really fundamental. As I say, I'll just reiterate, because I want to get this smoothly laid out. If you are going to back and vote for Reform, you are accepting that you are backing ex-Tories who failed this country, a man who took away and attacked our fundamental rights, a man who brought in mass migration. You are endorsing what destroyed this country. Now, if you want to do that, if that's your line of principle of that's how far you'll go with populism, that's cool. I'm not willing to do that. I will not compromise on the fact. I remember what it was like. I remember the letters I received saying, you can go and take the jab. I remember the masks being put on children. I remember what he did to this. There is a huge emotional. And hang on, hang on, please,
all emotions and feelings.
Please, it is emotional, and it is also.
I was in the same position as you, by the way.
Very, very principled. And I'm sorry, I'm not willing to compromise my principles to the extent that you allow people like that in a party. Okay. They destroy this country.
So why don't you vote for a party that just won't get in then? Great. Okay, can I talk a little bit about...
So you're willing to compromise on that? That's fine. Okay, if you're willing to compromise on that, that's cool.
I do not want Labour and Conservative or the Green Party, God forbid, getting into power.
God forbid, yeah.
So don't you agree with me that reform would be better than them?
Of course.
I think that we're early. We're very, very early in this stage.
Do you agree that reform would be better than the Tories or Labour or the Green Party?
Because yes, they would be better. But that doesn't mean that
can I go through how much better they would be? Because unlike Restore, Reform UK have a roadmap, okay? Restore has enthusiasm and it inspires clicks, but Reform has a roadmap and it's going to deliver results. So can we talk about, for instance, deporting non-UK citizens? Okay, this is what Restore want to do, and it is heavily constrained by existing laws. Okay, even doing that, even non-UK citizens, it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah, but this is reform. This is reform all over.
Wait, they're going to work with it. Can I please tell you? Please, can I tell you?
No, I'm happy. Please. I will not interrupt. Please,
I've got a list here, okay?
Fine.
Because I don't want to miss anything out. So we have to look at the legal feasibility in all this, okay? Reform UK have a structured program, okay? They propose a step-by-step legal changes that can actually be implemented within the law. They're going to repeal the Human Rights Act. They're going to leave the ECHR. They're going to be changing the visa and settlement rules. They're going to be restricting benefits to British citizens only. They're going to scrap the indefinite leave to remain. And they're going to create a deportation agency. These are real changes that they can do, and you are going to feel the benefits of these changes on a seismic level.
So the problem
these are huge changes.
Kezia.
Everyone's sitting there going, "It's not enough.
Kezia,
it's not enough." That's huge.
Well, Kezia, the problem is that Nigel Farage doesn't actually really believe in those policies. So I will never forget I will never forget the interview between him and Stephen Edgington on GB News. Yes. And this is when it changed for a lot of people, because there were two fundamental questions in that interview that went viral, where Stephen Edgington asked him, do you believe in mass deportations? He just said, nope, not on the agenda. They are impossible. They're impossible. But then the more fundamental question, I think, was to say, demography. Do you care about the changing demography of this country? And Farage said no. And that is a particular school of thought, by the way, amongst reformers. I'm not questioning it. I mean, Andrew Gold, the podcast host who seems to be quite pro-reform, has specifically said that he believes that white people will become extinct, and that is a reality. That is a demographic reality. But there's a lot of people who are not prepared to accept that. And
I think a lot of them are reform voters also that don't want to see these huge changes.
But Nigel Farage says he doesn't care.
Farage can't even...
Everything is going to change when they get in. There will be no more immigrants coming in. Yes, but you've got to give them a chance. Can't people just give them a chance? Okay. Because if they mess up, then, Restore can come along and they can sweep up the votes.
If Reform mess up, you know what will happen? That's when you get the tit whisperer Zach Polansky as Prime Minister, and it's too late. We only have one chance.
No, it might not be. Might not be, actually. It could go the other way. They could go more right.
But it sounds like you don't have faith that Nigel will be able to deliver this.
He will, 100%. I've just read out what they propose to do, and it's going to have a seismic change.
If Farage can't even have a conversation or define what it is to be English, okay, I think that's pretty paramount. The fact that we have this discussion as Restore, it's like, no, let's get to the nitty gritty here, okay? Let's talk about lineage, just referencing our conversation right at the beginning. Let's talk about lineage and ancestry and what that actually means. I actually think it's incredibly insulting to our forefathers and our ancestors who fought for this country, died for this country, to just say, well, you can rock up here whenever you want. We'll give you a passport. And if you're nice, polite, believe in democracy and you have fish and chips on a Friday, that makes you
Reform
English.
have not said they're going to do that. I've just read you out a list.
No.
Should we go through each
No,
one
hang
again?
on. Forget that for 1 second.
Why?
I'm happy to come back to that.
This list is really
I can come back
important.
to that. What I'm referencing.
What's Restore's list?
What I'm referencing is
Worrying about where people's lineage is from.
What I'm referencing, I think that's really crucial. Actually, I think that's fundamental.
Okay, so what do you want to do with all the black people here? What do you want to do with the Indians here? The Indian.
Why are we bringing
origin?
colour into it?
No, I'm
This
asking
is what
you.
happens. As soon as
Okay,
you have this
who do you
conversation,
wanna
you start
deport?
bringing
Who
colour
do you
in.
want to? No, you did. Who do you want to deport?
Fundamentally, I think that let's take because there's lots.
Because we need to talk about this because immigration is the big one, isn't it?
Okay, so Farage turns around and makes a speech. What was it? A couple of weeks ago, where he turns around and says that he removed Rupert from the party because Rupert believes in deporting communities. All right,
Which can't be done.
Right. Actually, what he's referencing is Rupert said, yeah, we should deport communities of rapists and paedophiles. Is that a controversial thing to say? Illegal or legal? Yeah, they should be
But
deported.
that's he said, she said, but we don't know if that's Rupert Lowe. Okay, we're just going on
It's
basically.
not he
on
said,
Rupert
she
Lowe
said. This is what he said publicly.
he said?
Yes. So
Nigel Farage said this publicly to Rupert Lowe?
no. So I'm
So
saying,
how do we know this is true?
No, because Farage, I can just break it down. Farage
Yeah.
said that that Rupert was kicked out of the party because of bullying in the workplace, and then
Oh,
the
you're
police
saying
turned
then he
up.
had another reason.
And then
Sorry,
he,
yes,
and
I'm
then he
following
comes
you
out
now.
and turns around and says, "Oh yeah, well actually it's because he wanted
it's
mass
probably for
deportations."
multiple- it's probably
It's
for
like-
multiple reasons.
It's like, hang
But
on a minute,
I
we do want
mass
to deport
deportations. I want mass
of
deportations.
of people who are here legally that are rapists,
I want mass deportations.
of people that are rapists that are here legally.
Of people who are here. Yes, I would like to go as far, but it can't
I'd
be
love
done.
Reform to say that, please.
No, but it can't be done. It can't be done. You have to change the whole constitution if you want to get this done, and you're going to be.
what?
We'll
Let's
do
do
it.
it.
Okay,
we
so
need a
let me explain it
political
to you.
rewrite
Right,
and
that's what I
revolution
used to
in this
say.
country.
So if you rush constitutional changes, okay,
Yeah.
without legal durability, okay, you're going to create. Every deportation will be challenged, okay? That's the result. And you'll create years of legal gridlock, legal paralysis. Nothing gets done. What Reform, I keep going back to this, they have got things that are workable, easy to implement. So you'll see the shift straight away. You will feel those changes straight away.
Cool, and we will continue to see rapists and paedophiles who are here legally, who aren't English, walking our streets. I'm not very happy with that.
You can't get rid of them. I wish I could. I'm like
Okay,
you. I'm
so-
frustrated as you are.
Cool, so-
I want to. Most Reform. Do you think most Reform voters are saying, "Oh no, it's a lovely idea. These people should stay here"?
No, but when
you
we
have to
turn around
work
and say it, we get
within-
called not ethno-nationalists, we get called
So
neo-Nazis
can we
for
just
having
say-
this conversation.
I've not said that to you.
No,
I do
know.
not believe you're and actually, there's a lot of people in Reform who vote Reform who can understand your position. There's a lot of things that Restore say, which it's great on paper. It just isn't workable. And I think Restore have a lot of heart, as I said. They have a lot of heart, but they don't have strategy. It's just a protest vote, it seems like, online. And it's just going to end up splitting the vote, and we're going to get more Labour, we're going to get more, God forbid, we're going to get Greens. But I do think on the day before they go in, maybe they'll hold their nose, who knows, but they're going to vote Reform because they're going to
But see, when you talk about splitting the right,
it's not about
though, and I
feeling,
think
it's about
this comes
rationality.
back, Kezia, though, to the question, which is about the trustworthiness, right, of our leaders. And you talk about splitting the vote on the right, and I hear this a lot from Reform UK. But this is my argument. You created this, Nigel. I'm really disappointed in Nigel for that. I mean, Nigel knows me. For example, he knows I'm not far right or extremist, but he has made supporting Reform UK for someone like me unpalatable. And he's done it on purpose, Kezia, because he has this strategy. And you can say it's the right strategy, fine. But the strategy is to alienate people on the right because he thinks that will make Reform UK more palatable to people on the centre. But what he has done is create actually this movement against Reform UK where Tommy Robinson supporters are branded that lot and not welcomed in the party, where Rupert Lowe is kicked out of the party for advocating for mass deportations, when Ben Habib, who was the former deputy leader of the party, is attacked constantly. So the argument that I'm making, Kezia, is that if the support on the right is split, you've only got to look at one person to blame, and that person is Nigel Farage. Before the last election, Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib were running as Reform UK candidates. Tommy Robinson endorsed Reform UK. Katie Hopkins endorsed Reform UK. I made it clear that I'd voted for Reform UK. We are the ones that have been thrust out of the party and treated like a piece of shit since.
Okay, so this is political strategy, what we're talking about now.
Yes, so you don't want us. Just admit it.
I do. I do.
Well, Farage doesn't.
Can I just, so we're not political strategists, us three, okay? And we're all going through, and you've made some fantastic points, but let's take the average person. They look at people like Tommy Robinson. This is not my view. They look at people maybe even like you and go, oh, these people are far right-wing Nazis, to say all this, like they used to say about Nigel Farage, okay?
Like they're still saying about you.
So can I, yes, but people are now, like even last year, I'll give you a personal anecdote. My family on one side are Lib Dem, for heaven's sake. And when I told them that I was voting reform, they recoiled. They said, don't talk about this with us. He's a vile man, he's a racist, he's linked to all these people like Tommy Robinson. And now, guess what? One of them is saying, you know what? I actually think I'm going to vote for reform because they're not as racist as I thought they were. They have sort of separated themselves from this movement, which I don't think is a racist movement, but we're looking at it again in our bubble. They look at people like Tommy Robinson and they clutch their pearls in shock and they say, can't believe someone like this is endorsing this party. So he's playing a very smart game here. I know it feels bad, like, we were supporting you at the beginning, Nige, and now we've just been casted out. But he's got to win an election. He's got to win an election, and he has to appeal to these average people who don't get past the first, 5 lines of an article, who just say, okay, he's not so linked to far right extremism anymore. He's more, as you said, palatable. You actually did kind of break down and explain what his political strategy is here.
Yeah, so you don't want people like us as part of Reform UK?
I do, but he's playing, I'm not the one who's in charge of, trying to get votes to come in. He is, and he's trying to go to a broader audience. We need those numbers in. We need those numbers in.
Okay, fine, but you need to stop moaning about the vote on the right being divided, because I think, Montgomery, the point about Restore Britain, right, is that there are a whole load of us who are not prepared to make those compromises, who believe that there's no reason we can't have a Trump-style leader come in and actually genuinely change things. And it comes down, I think, to one phrase, and that's anti-establishment. And I think in the past, Nigel Farage used to argue that he's anti-establishment, but actually I would argue Nigel is the establishment now. He's backed by the mainstream media on the right very much. He has Robert Jenrick literally texting policy now to George Osborne for approval.
Yes, no, absolutely. I do think Farage is becoming part of establishment. I do believe that reform initially started out as anti-establishment. I don't deny that was the initial motivation. But that's changed. You're absolutely right. Like,
power corrupts, doesn't it? Because all of these people can see
and
Reform
money,
UK getting into power.
Power and money, and that is not what we need. We need principled politics. We do not need this sort of flip-floppy, wishy-washy, okay, well, we'll make these compromises about these people because, we'll win an election. It's like, no, that's what got us into this mess, and I'm not willing to repeat that.
But what are your policies? I still don't. So apart from banning kosher halal, what are the other policies?
Oh, there are constant
I want to know,
policies
can I hear some of them? Cause I want to see if they're
referendum
workable.
on the death penalty. I mean, I'm not speaking on behalf of Restore Britain, but I see policies that are being posted all the time. So, for example, there's going to be referendum on the death penalty. There's going to be a complete overturning of all of the COVID laws, including giving back people who were wrongly fined
what
or
COVID
imprisoned.
laws are there now?
No. So, as in the people. So there will be. Sorry, you explain.
Yeah. So for people, for example, like you mentioned, you went on some of the COVID protests back in the day. I know people that have it on record that they broke the law and were fined for being outside.
Right, I understand.
So that will be reversed. So that will be refunded. There'll be full, and also there will be a public apology.
What about immigration?
What? That's a big question.
Well, there's a whole mass deportation.
We've got the most comprehensive mass deportation policy.
I contributed to it,
and also
how workable is it? You have to change the constitution, correct?
Well,
that takes up to a decade to do.
Well, I'll be very interested to, as I say, I'm going to repeat because I think I've held my own all right, considering I've only been kicking around internally inside Restore for about just under a fortnight now. But I'm actually at home reading through the deportation policy, and I will take on board everything you've said, and I'll have that conversation
but
elsewhere.
Also
you need a structured program.
I believe it is workable.
You need a structured program or a set of changes that at least acknowledge the need to navigate legal barriers methodically.
I don't disagree that you need structured, methodical change. I don't deny that, and I put trust and faith that the people that have contributed to that deportation document are well in the know of what needs to be done. I I haven't written anything
Have you
down.
read it,
experience?
Kezia?
I haven't. I've read
Okay.
some. I have
Well, look,
read some.
go-
but
go away,
how much
go away,
experience do they have?
go
The
away
people that put it
and
together.
read the
How much do they know
mass
about
deportation
constitutional law?
document, because it's brilliant. It's
Okay,
brilliant.
okay.
But there is another real fundamental policy difference,
Uh-huh.
and this only came out quite recently, actually, after the attack on Iran by Donald Trump. And this
yes.
will surprise a lot of people because it was where Restore Britain was actually aligned with the Green Party and Zach Polanski, because Rupert Lowe was very, very clear that there should not be any British involvement in the attack on Iran, whereas Nigel Farage said that Starmer was wrong to go ahead and block Trump from using our air bases, for example. So there is a big foreign policy difference. Montgomery, would you describe it as an isolationist policy?
Well, I would just describe it as I've always been, when it comes to all foreign conflicts and engaging in foreign affairs, I've always been it's basically not hard. What benefits Britain? And at the moment,
Having
we've got-
Iran gone.
that's fine. Or we
It
could
benefits
just,
Britain hugely.
Or we could,
20 terror attacks, which are funded by Iran, by the Iranian
Okay.
regime, were discovered from 2022.
No, look, I don't deny. Okay, so don't get me wrong. I'm not turning around here and saying that Iran's great and we should just leave it. I'm not saying that. The regime in Iran is grim. So I don't refute that, and that it has a very negative influence on the
funding
West.
terrorism for 40 years.
However, I just feel where our energy should be positioned is dealing with what's actually in our country now.
You can
as
do
in-
both. You
as
can do
in-
both.
Well, why should we do both? When
Because
we're in,
we've done it for
well,
millennia.
we shouldn't, because
So
what we
Thatcher
we
had
are,
a she coat with Falklands
we
War
are in
and
a
creating
position,
a fantastically strong
we
economy.
are in a
You can't do
position
both. So
where
you
we
can
can't
only
even
focus on
feel
one thing.
we've got councils
my
which
God.
are literally
This
like
is not a-
bankrupt.
this is not a party
we
for
can't,
government.
We can't even fill a pothole, let alone start
Potholes.
sending
So,
money
wait,
over.
Hold on. No. Again, this is emotional. So you're talking about
not
potholes
emotional.
and you're saying, look, this was... Okay. So Reform believes in standing with our strong democratic allies, okay? And you're saying to me, no, we shouldn't do that because we've got potholes to fill.
No, you're
So,
stripping back
Kezia,
what I've said. I'm saying
would
just-
Reform put boots on the ground in Ukraine?
They didn't, did they? They didn't say that they wanted to.
No, but would they?
I wouldn't like to support that because I don't think
Boots
I think
on the
Iran
ground
is
in
a bigger.
Israel?
I think Iran is a bigger threat to us. I think Iran is a serious threat to the world. And I think we should stand with our allies, such as the USA. I think that was a bad mistake from Rupert Lowe to not side with him and to say, "Oh, it's because we've got problems here." Of course, we've got huge problems in this country. But hold on, do you know who Margaret Thatcher is? Because I know
Yes,
you're
yes,
quite
I
young.
do.
I'm only kidding with you.
No, it's
but
all
so
right.
Margaret Thatcher, she she ran something called the Falklands War.
Yeah.
Whilst looking after the country, she didn't say, "No, we're not going to get involved in this war because we've got potholes and because we've got this and that and other things that need our
Montgomery,
attention."
final word.
Yeah. I mean, the situation back then versus what we're dealing with now was very, very different. And I would just say my analogy would be, to end all of this, when a plane is crashing and burning, what is the first thing you do? You put your oxygen mask on before you put it on your child. And that there is exactly what we need to do. We are crashing and burning, and we need to put our own oxygen mask on before we can consider helping anybody else. Our country is crumbling, and our priority must be Britain.
You just need a stronger plan. That's all that can work.
Well, brilliant debate. Absolutely loved that. Kezia Noble
was a
representing
pleasure.
Reform
That was a real
UK
pleasure, honestly.
and Montgomery Toms
Thank you, Dan.
representing Restore Britain. He is new to the party, but fascinating stuff. Which side are you on? Let me know. And we will continue this debate in the weeks and months to come. At least we have it here because I know we didn't talk about it today, but at